What's up, Dragon Brood? Over the last couple of years, I've had some people asking, like, why are cards getting so expensive? Or is this just they always think there's some type of investment bubble happening around Magic. But I think there's a lot more to it that people need to understand as to why your cards have gotten more expensive during the pandemic. And I want to dive into a few of those things because some are more obvious than others. Some make a lot of sense once you've had it explained to you. But in general, at least helping you understand this kind of gives more context to the whole thing. And I think this is an interesting discussion that we can have. So let's get into it. Now, first off, let's start from, a historical perspective, if you will. If you go back to 07, 08, I think it was, when we had the housing crash and there was this whole recession situation that people were concerned about, one thing that we saw was generally the collectibles market didn't take a humongous hit. As a matter of fact, Magic actually did very well during that time compared to a lot of other gaming brands. And one of the reasons that's believed, because at the time I was doing a ton of retail stuff and obviously keeping up with other retailers, which I still do now, but one of the things we talked a lot about was that people went back to things they knew, right? You're not going to try new things. You're going to go back to things you already know are solid, provable, fun, right? It's not a gamble with what little money you do have. So it kind of makes sense that we've seen more people migrate to Magic. Though we've also seen that with people migrating to other brands during this time, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, from a historical perspective, this isn't that uncommon. Like, we just saw this basically, a decade and a half ago? So it kind of makes sense that we're coming back around to people saying, well, if money's tight, what things do I know that I enjoy? And then you start digging through your closet and you find a box of Magic cards you haven't messed with in, who knows, maybe 3-4 years. And it's like, okay, well, now I can go ahead and mess with these. Let me go buy some cards to finish off a deck. Maybe I should build this commander I've been waiting on, right? There's a lot of things there that can motivate people to spend on a thing you already are familiar with. And I think that's one of the biggest things here, is that this is kind of just repeating history in a way. And I think those who already were aware got ahead of it a little bit. Those that weren't may have missed the boat. But that's not really what this is about. This is more about just explaining where those prices come from. Now, to kind of piggyback on that, one of the things we have to talk about is just popularity, right? We've seen a lot of ads for Magic online. We've seen a lot of people picking up Arena. We've seen celebrities talking more about Magic. So there's more and more going on that are kind of like creating this groundswell, if you will, of more people coming out of the woodwork to just try the game. And that's actually generally a good thing. But this also leads to a shortage of cards, right? You have more people looking for more things to build more decks, and ultimately some of those things aren't going to be there. Especially older cards, right? Even with reprints and secret layers and all these other things, there's still going to be a shortage of cards. And part of that as well is because of the lack of events. Obviously, anybody who's been around paying attention to this thing, the pandemic, for the last 2 years knows that we actually haven't been playing as much at retail stores. We haven't been doing any Grand Prix. Most of us haven't been going to conventions, right? These are all the places where cards circulate. People bring them in to get credit, whether that's to get Magic stuff or to get other Warhammer things or whatever it is, right? They're or maybe even just selling cards to pay bills. Who knows? But those cards end up in circulation. Currently, that's not a thing that's happening. So people aren't just selling as much stuff. Though, if you have a bunch of new people, maybe they don't have as much to sell. So it's kind of a weird situation, but card availability is one of the biggest issues. Honestly, think about it like this. Like, I know for a fact, there are some cards lost in this office that you can't see off camera. How many cards have you had, or boxes, or binders, or things that just get stuff stacked on top of them? Or maybe shoved into the back of your closet? Or who knows, just lost in your house somewhere? Right? Those are cards that generally, if you were planning to go to a Grand Prix, you probably would have dug up, set aside, put in a deck box or a cardboard box to take to sell to some vendor. Well, that's not happening right now. Can you still sell online? Sure, but some people don't want to pay the shipping, or it's too much hassle to go through people's buy list, or whatever. It's just not as convenient to get rid of the cards right now, so that means less of them are out there. Now, one of the other things you're going to notice is kind of all of these points sort of just stack up on each other. But the next one I want to talk about is the stimulus money that went out. And every country seemed to have gotten, or at least industrialized nations, seemed to get some version of stimulus to some level. But I can't really speak to that because I don't have all the details for every country. So I'm just going to speak about what I know that happened here with the US economy, and the US retailers. Now, one of the things is that a lot of that money went out. Well, one, it went to every US adult. And obviously, if you had kids, there was some extra money. But again, just talking about adults that are spending money on their own here. But here's what happened. Lots of people I spoke to were geeks, because that's a lot of the people that play Magic particularly. Nothing wrong with that, not an insult, just saying, we're nerds, geeks, however you want to classify it. But a lot of those nerds and geeks kept the jobs that weren't necessarily greatly impacted by the pandemic. A lot of them were still working from home, a lot of them have IT jobs, a lot of them working on servers, programming things, whatever. Things that still had to go and function during the pandemic. So they were still earning money, but then also got these stimulus checks. Now, most of the people I know were pretty smart, and they went ahead and paid down debts and other things. But the ones who didn't necessarily even have heavy debts or whatever were looking at these $1,200 plus checks, depending on how much you got, and just decided to spend it on fun things. And for them, Magic's the fun thing. So if you've been waiting to get some expensive commander cards or whatever, maybe you needed a Gaia's Cradle or whatever, and you didn't really care that they were, I don't know, what are they now? Like some ungodly amount of money, like $400 or $500? I don't know. But you can go afford to get one. You want to get some dual lands, you can go buy one or two, right? Like, so some people were doing that, and we saw a spike as that money started going out. Because again, there's already a shortage of the cards before we had this issue, and now people that have been waiting to spend money now had money to spend. But it's not just the stimulus that led to all this spending. Think about this. I've talked to people who were stunned to learn how much extra money they had when they couldn't go do things. And then for the people who have children, that was even more money they saved. But think about it, even if you were just a single adult and you played Magic, you were probably going to an F&M a couple times a month. Maybe you went to some Saturday event. You were probably out and about, whether you go play it at a friend's house, you played at a tournament, a convention, even your local store. You're probably spending some amount of money on soda, snacks, gas money, whatever, right? Maybe you're going to the movies. We weren't doing any of that stuff during the pandemic. So imagine if you were saving, let's say conservatively, $150, $200 a month between all your activities. Well, where's that money going? Especially if you've already, again, as we addressed, some people have already paid down their debts. Well, you get a year into the pandemic and you've got a couple extra $1,000. People are bad with money. We should be saving that, investing it, doing something for the future. But heck, you're a 26, 27-year-old person. You have extra money. You're going to buy something nice for yourself. Well, they bought Magic cards. I mean, what are you going to do, right? This is the case of where you just have a lot of people with extra money and a shortage of product, and people want more things. And let's be clear here, like, this isn't just Wizards of the Coast needs to reprint a bunch of stuff to meet demand or whatever. Like, don't get me wrong, it would be nice if they reprinted more things, but that's not the real main issue here. I mean, even think about stuff like Secret Lair. They used to keep Secret Lairs only available for like a week or two, and then if you didn't get in that window of time, you just missed the order. Now, the last couple I remember looking at were open for like a month or something. So those cards are still seeing an increase in value, even with there being a longer window and more people ordering them. So that just means there's a constant demand for cards, whether it's an influx of players or just more money being available or people trying to make playsets or complete old collections. Like, there's so many things there that could lead to people spending more on Magic cards. And for those of you that are unaware, don't think this is just a Magic problem. Like, we went through a whole 12 to 18 months of Pokemon blowing up and being crazy. Pretty much anything that had a Pikachu or a Charizard on a cardboard rectangle that was 3.5 by 2.5 was gonna get a ton of attention. That's just how it was. But we've seen this in sports cards, we've seen this in all types of collectibles, right? There was excess money plus the stimulus packages, and people were looking to spend on hobbies. Like, if nothing else, we all just needed distractions and wanted our favorite distractions at that. So that just meant the money was gonna go somewhere, so it went into these hobbies and collectibles. Whether we like it or not, Magic still happens to be a hobby and collectible. Now, let's be fair here, that's not all bad. Like, if you've been playing for a while, there's cards like Shivan Dragon that you could have got previously for, I don't know, even the revised ones for $4 or $5. Now, as of, I believe, early 2021, they had spiked, and now find them for like $20. So some of these old cards you've had sitting in your collections magically became an investment. I would even recommend, if you recently, or not even recently, if you have some bulk you purchased or stuff you set aside from, let's say 2018, it's probably worth going through, because some number of those cards are worth significantly more than they were whenever you put them away. That's a real thing. Now the question becomes, do I think this is going to last? This is a thing of like, should you be selling your cards now because they're at an all-time high versus waiting on it or whatever? Like, truthfully, I think it's like all things. We have people all the time talking about, are we in a magic bubble? When is the bubble going to burst? But like, this doesn't work like a housing market. Like, there's so many other things at play when you're talking about housing, the economy, taxes, whatever, right? You don't have all that affecting Magic. As we've seen the last couple of times we've had a major, anything resembling a recession, Magic has done well and cards have gone up. More players keep coming into the game, where they're just spending more on advertising. And this is without us even having Grand Prix or special events to go to, or conventions or whatever, and no organized or tournament play system or whatever, right? When that all gets rolling, we're probably going to see yet another spike in prices, because there's going to be more cards that are desired for people to build competitive decks so they can get to the next level. So no, I don't think this is a bubble, and I don't think this is like a have to sell now. Like, should you be holding on to it for 4 or 5 years or whatever? That's for you to decide. I can't really say one way or the other. I actively buy, sell, trade cards currently. I'm not worried about saving them for the future. There's more things I could do with that money, rolling it into other things, so I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity at hand. But that's just me and my situation. It could be definitely different for you. But I don't think this is some magical bubble. I don't think it's going to burst. And even if it does, let's say there's a decline or whatever, it's not going to be sudden. Magic has a whole infrastructure of players, writers, websites, tournaments, casual players, competitive players. Like, it's a lifestyle, even more so than it is a game for a lot of people. So I wouldn't expect to see that drop off anytime soon. This is just kind of the way of the world. Now, as Wizards reprints more things, we will obviously see the price come down on some items, but we've also seen items that have been reprinted 2 or 3 times still find their way creeping back up as more people get into the formats those cards are relevant in, or, you know, they're just casual cards that end up becoming popular in Commander, even though there's 5 printings or more out there. That's just the way it is. But yeah, hopefully this all explains why your cards have gotten expensive. There are a ton of different factors that have led to this, and they all happen to have culminated in the perfect storm during the pandemic. I will say, yes, these spikes have been higher than normal, but I don't think they're going to have a major drop off. I just think that's where we are now. But I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. And let me know in the comments, did I miss any of the other major factors? Is this all unbelievable to you? Do you have any cards that you thought weren't worth anything and discovered they were worth a ton of money? Because I think that could be a fun conversation as well. And as always, consider joining the channel, and even if you don't, please hit the like button on this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and click all notifications so you get notified every time I have a video up. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.